Hello everyone, this is Catherine from Millennials in Motion magazine, and this is our 15th episode of Conversations with the Community, and today I am sitting down with Ashley, who is the curator for Market in the Alley. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with Market in the Alley.
Yeah, so I used to have my own local shop, which is how I met Jen Toller, who is the founder of Market in the Alley and Fergusons downtown. And originally I had planned on possibly moving my store into Fergusons once it opened, but at that time had been hosting small little pop-up shops in my store when Market in the Alley started. So it started in 2017 with about 12 vendors in this little abandoned alleyway, and I was one of those 12 vendors. So that's kind of how I first initially got started, working with Jen and the project at Fergusons. And then last year, January 2019, Jen had offered me the position to curate the market with Kelly Bennett, who's now our head director of marketing. So yeah, it was really good. Kelly and I are good friends and business partners with another side project called the Workshop Downtown, where we work with local creatives. Yeah, so Kelly and I had done kind of one-off events, markets, health and wellness events, and then I had my store, which I closed after I had my daughter, Avila. So I was just working freelance, doing creative direction and ethical merchandising at that time, when Jen asked if Kelly and I wanted to start curating Market, and we both kind of jumped on the opportunity, and it's been really fun since. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what is Market in the Alley and what is Fergusons?
Yeah, so I'll start with Fergusons. So Fergusons is a whole city block. It started with the renovation of this really cool, like 1940s motel called Fergusons, and essentially it had been abandoned and nothing had been done with it for a few decades. And Jen Toller, the founder or co-founder of that project, is really good friends with Tony Shea, who is from Downtown Project and is the CEO of Zappos. And he said, I guess, why don't we buy the old motel and turn it into something amazing? So Jen had this idea of converting the motel into shops and restaurants, really to highlight our local creatives and our local small business owners. So it went from there. So they started the project. They had actually been living in something called Airstream Park across the street. And it was essentially a little parking lot with a bunch of Airstreams and tiny houses. And, I think it was 20 or 30 people living there in this communal setting. And so when they took over Fergusons, they all moved into the back part of where the hotel used to be, around the pool, and just renovated that back area and started working on the front, and really just cleaning up the old motel rooms, renovating the whole green space in front. They moved a big semi-truck sculpture from Burning Man into the front, and that lives there permanently now. And while they were kind of waiting on the licensing to open Fergusons and start the build and all the permitting and, legal and all the fun things that go into renovating a building, they started Market in the Alley. So Jen and her friend Nicole had started it, like I said, with 12 vendors, and the idea was to rent out this alleyway across the street from Fergusons and host these markets that highlight local makers and creatives and artists, in the meantime, before Fergusons opened. And so now here we are in 2020, and we just had our grand opening in December for Fergusons. So it took a few years, almost 3 years for it to really get open. But what we've been doing with Market in the Alley is really building that culture. So it's a monthly market that we host in this abandoned alley. And since 2017, it's been covered in murals. We've worked with a lot of different local artists and creatives to really make that space something colorful. And it's, pretty much closed other than when we do the market or we do kind of one-off events inside of it. But Market is really what it's known for. Which is really cool. So it's between 10th and 11th Street on Fremont, and right in the middle of, this bustling urban area, which is just so interesting. It's this huge, colorful alley, and then we fill it with, now we're sometimes up to 70 makers and creatives and artists popping up. Yeah, and it's 4 hours at a time, and we do live music, and we bring in a lot of good food, so it's really, really grown. And it's become kind of a staple event, I feel like, of downtown, which is really cool to see. So we see our regular people, come every month to support local creatives, and it's pretty awesome. So
yeah, I love being down there. Such a beautiful picture of our community and everyone coming out, and I love it, especially when I see like the children set up booths and sell stuff. And
We have a whole kidpreneur program. So we partner with Future Makers, which is a business that actually started at Market in the Alley. And basically what she does is she is helping, kids kind of find and explore making and creating and kind of the STEM program stuff with technology and science and the arts, and really letting kids kind of explore that. And then she does a monthly meetup with them for any kid who wants to have their own business. And they learn from different leaders in the community and business owners different skills for running and owning a business. So it's really cool. So we do have some kidpreneurs that are popping up at Market every month.
I love it. That makes me so excited.
Yeah.
I don't remember there being that kind of stuff when I was a kid, so I'm happy that these resources and opportunities are available to them. Because that really sets the stage for them as they grow older to be, they're already involved in their community.
Absolutely.
It's so important.
Yeah.
So what are the goals of Market in the Alley?
So our goals are really to highlight and celebrate local creatives. So artists, makers, creators, designers, musicians, culinary innovators. And then my background is a lot in ethical production, like I said, and really kind of finding sustainability through all of this as well, because I think local small business is so important, because it's going to create this strong foundation for our local economy. And I grew up in Vegas as well, so I didn't feel like I really had that as a kid, but I do remember we would go to our favorite restaurant that was like a mom and pop restaurant. And so kind of figuring out, for me, it's been a fun adventure of figuring out how we can create that culture in the middle of downtown Vegas, which for a long time was known as being, not very safe or very friendly. And so we still have people that are nervous to come down until they, see the photos online and videos, and they're like, okay, I finally just have to go. And we hear that all the time. It's like, I never knew that there was this downtown. And my personal goals are to really make it, more eco, more sustainable, and really so that we're just continuing to impact the community and the city in a good way. So, yeah.
What are some of the ways that you guys have moved towards sustainability?
So we have gone meat-free. Last fall is when we really started pushing on sustainability initiatives. So each month I've been really trying to implement something. And not just to say, oh, we're not doing this anymore, but to really also use it as a time to educate the community and our vendors and the community of attendees who are coming, why we're doing certain things. So we went meat-free in, I want to say, September, October. So now all of our food vendors are either fully vegetarian or vegan. And we are doing that because the meat industry does take a big toll on the environment. And so that was a big thing that we felt, if we do this early on and then people are just used to it, then they can discover for a longer period of time why it's, good to eat vegan, and then also discover all these really cool vegan food trucks and tents and people that we have in Vegas, because I think that's something really unique. People don't think, I'm gonna be in Las Vegas and be able to find all of this amazing vegan and vegetarian food. So we've kind of made a platform for that, which is fun. And then the next month we started a stainless steel cup initiative. So really trying to cut down on our plastic use in the space. So we do have a pop-up bar that happens every month, and they typically use plastic cups, or a lot of our vendors, we can't have glass in the alleyway. So our kind of thought with that is when you go to festivals and things, usually you can find stainless steel cups or bring your own cup to get your drinks in. And so we branded our own Market in the Alley cup, which was like the first thing we were able to brand with our new logo in the fall, because we actually didn't have an official logo for the last 2.5 years. So we finally got that, we put it on a cup, and then we've been selling that, and all of our vendors agree to give 20% off inside the venue on any drinks, including the bar, when people bring that cup. So it's really cool, yeah. And I always try to catch up with the bartender after, like how many people brought their cups, and it's a lot. So it's really cool to see that people are really utilizing their cups, and hopefully outside of the event too, taking it with them to a bar. So I actually have to reorder another case of them today because we're almost out. So that's a good feeling that, it's really being utilized and we're not using as much plastic.
Yeah, it's being really well received.
Yeah, and people haven't been, I've had a lot of people come up and, oh, well, this is cute. And I'm like, yeah, because, this is the reason behind, and that incentive to get a discount every time you come. If you know you're going to be there a lot, it makes sense. So there's that, and then we launched a bike valet last month, so trying to get people who live downtown to ride their bikes to the market, and we'll watch them for them up front for free, and then they can come pick them up when they're done, and it's
super cool.
Yeah, and then I've been talking a lot on Instagram, whatever I pop on the stories, just reminder for people to carpool or invite someone who's never been, and go pick them up. So really trying to get people to think about how they're getting to market. And then my goals for this year are really to eliminate all the plastic in the venue. So, which gets tricky.
Yeah, definitely. So much, there's plastic everywhere.
Totally.
And everything.
And even just sanitation wise for food vendors, like sometimes there is no other choice than plastic. Like there is no alternative that exists. So really my goal is to help find those alternatives for our vendors, and then just kind of educate around why we want to go this certain way. So that's all I can do, and that's what I'm trying to do. So
I think you're doing a fantastic job of that. So thank you for implementing that into the market, because just having that exposure to the ideas is what a lot of people just simply need to make that step, because they otherwise aren't exposed to the idea, so they don't organically think of it on their own, like, oh, maybe I should find an alternative for this. So you're putting it in front of them. They're just like, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's fun too, just to see. I mean, people, we haven't even really talked about it much, but a lot of people who come to market bring their own bag, or they, so I'm like, the community is already thinking about that, which is really cool to see as well. Yeah, and then composting is another goal, so we'll get there eventually.
Have you heard of Viva La Compost?
No.
So it's actually one of my business partners. She was the first person. Her name is Veronica. She's the owner of Viva La Compost. She was one of the first businesses that I reached out to, and she does a compost pickup service. So she does residential and she does commercial.
Okay.
So residential, you get a bucket, and she comes every 2 weeks, and you put your food waste and everything in there, and she takes it to terra firma, and they do the composting out there, and every couple of months you get a little bit of soil back because you help make it. But she also does do commercial stuff with businesses, especially vegan businesses, because right now it's really hard to make sure that someone's not putting meat or cheese or other stuff in there. But I highly recommend.
I'm gonna email her today. That's perfect.
Yes,
cool.
I can give you her information.
Yay.
What has the growth and development been like over time since you guys started to this point now?
So it's kind of fun for me to be on this end of the organization part of it, because being one of the first vendors, I remember, there were, I think, 12 of us, and maybe 100, 200 people came through. And now we get, like I said, sometimes on Saturday nights have been a little bit slower, so we usually have around 35 vendors, and then Sunday can have 65, and if we go over that, then we start spilling over into the yard, which is what we call the area around the front of the Fergusons motel, in the grass there. And like this past, it was February 16th, that Sunday market, we had 1,700 people come through.
Wow.
So yeah, and last April was our biggest market that we've ever had, and it was on Easter Sunday, and we had 4,000 people in 4 hours.
It
was insane. Yeah, it was really good. And so basically, yeah, at the front, we're clicking, people in as they come in. But we also realized we have the food alley, so we've kind of spilled over into an alley next door, and that's where all of our food and kind of our picnic tables are. And sometimes people walk in that way, so we don't catch those people. So really, I'm like at 1,700-ish, because we might have had a couple hundred people come through the side. We don't know.
Right.
So, but we know at least 700 came through, and over 100 dogs. This last one we had.
I love seeing
101 dogs. Yeah.
I saw that you guys have that little doggy area now.
Yeah. So we just partnered with Hydrant Club, who's up the street, and Kathy Brooks, the CEO and owner, founder. She's working with us to create this really cool little lounge space that's for the dogs and for the dog owners, and really to educate dog owners about what resources exist in town for dogs, and then also teach things like, city etiquette with your dog and, the do's and don'ts of dog ownership, and then also bring in other, animal professionals into the space. So we're working on getting a veterinarian to come and do Q&A and then teach about vaccines or just common questions that a dog owner might have. And that's our whole goal with Market too. I didn't mention that Market is always free for attendees. So we really want to keep it a free event so that everyone can come enjoy the space when it happens. And same with anyone we partner with. We really just want to help educate people and inspire them to be active and impact their community and live a creative lifestyle. So, yeah.
I love it. It's beautiful.
Thanks.
So how often is the event? And you already gave the location exactly.
Yeah, so the event is every third weekend of the month. So when it's cool out, coolish, it's Saturday night, 6 to 10 p.m. and Sunday, 12 to 4 p.m. And then from June to September, since it's just so hot, it's just Saturday night only.
Understandable.
Yeah, we just
don't want anyone getting heat sickness.
Totally,
especially the dogs.
Yeah.
As a lot of people out here aren't aware that, especially in the heat, when they take their dogs out, they burn their paws.
Totally.
So that's definitely an important consideration.
Yeah, and even for the dog lounge, so we actually are only doing that on our Sunday market days, and we will likely break for the summer for that reason, because Kathy is like, even if you're taking your dog out in the evening, she's like, one at night during the summer on a Saturday night, she's like, she's like, I really don't want people having their dogs out because it's loud, it could be scary, it's too warm, she's like, there's all these different factors.
It's a lot of stress for them.
Yeah, so, and she really is, I call her she's like more than a dog whisperer, so it's wild to see her interact with animals because she just knows how to communicate so well with them, and so it's really cool to have her taking part in all this. I'm learning a lot, so yeah.
Do you guys do themed events?
We did for a while. I kind of took a break in the fall as I've been focusing more on the sustainability and how we can work those things into the event every month. But last year we did, and that's something we want to get back to soon. So we've really kind of been working on refining the brand the last month and a half. So 2020, we really want to help kind of elevate the brand as a whole and help all of our vendors if they would like to, elevate their merchandising or just, their packaging. We really want to be hands-on and helping provide that education to them. So that's kind of what we've been focusing on.
That's awesome.
And you just reminded me. So we need to bring themes back. But
that's super exciting.
Not yet.
So what are all the kind of different vendors you've had at the event?
We've had a little bit of everyone, I'd say. We have a lot of jewelry. Jewelry is our number one. We get the most applications for jewelry. We get the most diverse selection of jewelry because it can be so different. So a lot of jewelry, apothecary items. We have some really good local people making good quality skincare. So that's been really fun. A couple leather workers that do some really cool leather, wallets and keychains and things like that. More CBD products coming to market, and all types, body butters to tinctures to, all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah, it's a little bit of everything. Art, all different types of mediums of art, people doing home goods. We have 3 different low or zero waste home good product shops that are all One is a private label brand, and then another, she is curating products from different zero waste manufacturers and then branding some of her own stuff. And then the third, they kind of source everything locally, Minimal Market, who I think you mentioned the last episode was with. Love them. And so, yeah, we have just a little bit of everything. Yeah.
Beautiful. Some nice little community medley.
Yeah. Oh, and a lot of good vintage too, and some secondhand vendors as well.
I was there last time. I saw So Needy. And
Yes.
they make the vegan
oh
bread.
my
And I was
gosh.
so
And
excited.
it's gluten free. She's sold out, so that's her first ever market.
Yay.
Yeah, and she sold out in the first hour, I think. So it was kind of cool because I've been communicating with her for the last couple months of having her come, and farmers markets is something I'm working on now too. So I want her to be part of that. But she said, they spent like almost 24 hours straight or something crazy baking. And she was like, and we sold out in the first hour. She's like, so next month I'm gonna have to like maybe hire some help and rent a commercial kitchen. She's like, because I realized like I didn't make enough, and she made a ton. So that was really cool. And that's like
fantastic.
one of the
I love
best
it.
parts for me. Yeah, like seeing people really be impacted by the community, because it's not just people coming out to look. Usually it's people who want to come out and support local, and they're going to be buying things, and it makes it worthwhile for everyone. So it's good.
That makes me so happy
Yeah.
to hear that. So how much does it cost for someone to be a vendor at the event?
So typically it varies by size. So, and then we have an admin fee. So the admin fee is $50, and that's a one-time fee people pay when they're accepted and they decide to vend. And that pays for custom signage for them,
Nice.
because we want really uniform wooden signage. We work
I
with
did
a
see
local.
that last time.
Yeah, we work with a local woodworking group, and they're called Legacy, and they make all of our signage. So anytime a vendor is accepted, we basically send them this acceptance email that says, you have this one-time non-refundable fee. It goes for admin, and then this new vendor placard is what we call it. And then that way too, if someone forgets their signage, they have they can use our signage, and then it also helps them find their booth when they get there. And then the spaces vary by size. So we have 6x6s that are $75 per day, 8x8s for $100, and 10x10s for $125. So, and then if people don't have a City of Las Vegas business license, then they're required to pay an additional $10 for what's called a vendor tag fee. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's pretty reasonable. And our goal, my goal is to keep the cost low like it is. So I've been looking for sponsorships and things like that. So hopefully we have some sponsorships coming through this year.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So how does one become a vendor?
So we have, I just added, I'm so excited about it, but our brand guidelines on the site. So fergusonsdowntown.com, and then you click on events, Market in the Alley. It kind of goes through what the dates are for the year. And then it says, if you're interested in becoming a vendor, click here to read our brand guidelines before applying. So these brand guidelines I put a lot of time into to kind of just give people an idea of what to expect, because I've had a lot of people apply who have never been to market, and then they get to the space and they're like, where am I? Because it is in this old alley, the ground is uneven, some of it's dirt, so it is this funky venue, but it's a lot of fun. So I really try to encourage people, like, come visit a Market in the Alley first before applying, so that you kind of get the feel of the event. Because we really try to, brand ourselves differently than a farmer's market or a craft fair or something. We really want to have a unique feel and culture to what we're putting on. So, yeah, we have the application and everything online once people read through the brand guidelines.
What's the application process like? Do you have like a panel that determines who?
So we're actually working on that, but it's really just our team. So sometimes it's myself. So Kelly, like I said, we were hired to curate the market together, but then in October, as things were warming up for the opening of the front space, she became the director of marketing. So it's really just myself right now. And then I have a girl, Ian, on our team that helps me with a lot of the back end stuff. But it's usually myself, and I can tell, if an application is filled out fully, because we get a lot of applications actually that aren't fully filled out, which is weird to me. So I put on the application recently actually, hey, if the application is incomplete, like you might not be considered, because there are certain things we need to see before we approve an application. And I try to communicate with people, hey, we're missing this photo, or you didn't provide an Instagram, or, I know your business license number is not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, because I get that a lot. So there's there's some stuff, but it is pretty much myself looking it over. And then if there's someone who I'm like, I like the product, but maybe the merchandising isn't what I would love to see, we kind of email them, and I just say, hey, love the product. I'd love to help you with your merchandising. But yes, in the meantime, pay the $50 fee. We'll have you, here's the reservation link, because the link to reserve for a month is private until I send it out to people. And then once someone is approved as a vendor, they're always approved. So they can reserve whichever months they want. It's always that same link. Yeah. So we don't go through and like, you're invited for this month only. It's kind of, here's the link, sign up for which months you are available to be there. And so we kind of go from there. And we've started capping industries, which has been really fun on the website. And that's total sarcasm, so it's been really difficult. So yeah, we started capping so that we don't have like 12 jewelry vendors and, only things offered for women, at the market. So we're really trying to keep it diverse in what we're offering every month, in terms of what vendors have. So we've started capping industries. So like no more than 6 jewelry vendors every month, no more than 3 home goods, 4 vintage. So really kind of trying to make sure it's always a diverse selection when people come to market of what to shop
and
from.
do you like cycle vendors out? So if like 1 month you were at caps or you weren't able to bring someone in, do they have to reapply for next month, or
no?
On the list and you contact them?
So we basically just have like a master vendor list. So once someone's approved, they go into this master list, and that's like our list that we email every month. So it's always kind of equal opportunity, like, hey, reservations are open for this month, you can go ahead and book, use the link. And if someone, let's say, so this is a great example, so we've been selling out of jewelry really fast lately, so I just email some of our usual people, if I have time, I don't forget, because that happens a lot too, but I'll email and say like, hey, we've only got 1 spot left for jewelry. I know you've been here the last couple months, like, today's a good day if you can reserve it so that it doesn't sell out before you're able to, or go ahead and sign up for next month and I can put you on a wait list for this month. So we have started a wait list, and I put that on the site as well. Like if something is showing that it's sold out, you can email me to verify, but it's probably sold out, and then I can put you on a wait list. So, and it's pretty manual. It's not super technical. It's just like emailing, hey Ash, like let me know if someone drops, so I can email them when that happens.
Nice.
Yeah.
And do you ever have people who like share spaces? Or like...
So we don't do booth sharing anymore, just because, like I said, with that elevation of the curation, we want everyone to feel like every booth to feel unique. Mm-hmm. So when you're putting 2 people in the same booth that maybe what they're both selling doesn't mesh well, it just doesn't look good. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, is really just make sure everyone has their own space and they get to curate that whole space, with their products. And that's something too this year with the brand guidelines I've really been looking at, is making sure that people's collections are cohesive. Mm-hmm. So like I can say from my own experience, I love making, things out of clay, and I also like to make jewelry, and I have all these different things. But if I'm going to present them as a boutique, let's say, right, or they're my handmade goods, I want to make sure that collection of goods is cohesive. Right. So that's kind of what that's what we look for, as well. And I've been saying to people recently who've applied with maybe like, they do 8 different things, like, okay, well, let's pick one and like start there. And then make sure it's always cohesive when you bring it. And that kind of goes along with the booth sharing, why we want to kind of help people to curate what's in the booth, that it's all cohesive.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that kind of addressed the next question, was if if people ever do showcase more than one thing at their booth.
Yeah, and they do. And it is usually, so like we have one girl who does jewelry and clothing.
Oh, cool.
So, well, actually we have a few now that I think of it that do that, but it's all kind of in that same style, right? So like vintage clothing or like, you know, what's that word? Bespoke clothing, but her jewelry goes along with that. And then the vintage vendor, her palette of the jewelry she's making goes along with the vintage clothing she's selling. So that's kind of, yeah, how that goes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is there, like, what are the guidelines for people who are under a certain age and want to set something up that might not fall in the category of the future makers?
So we do have, like our kidpreneurs that I was talking about, that actually goes up to age 16.
Oh, okay.
And their booth fee is $10.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so we really want to make it accessible, yeah, and really, and we went back and forth with it. We used to do it for free. Then we realized there is some like, organization and time that goes into curating that. And then too, if we're not selling that just on a financial standpoint as a sellable space, what does that look like? So, and I think too, being, having been an entrepreneur, it is important that these kids learn, when you vend somewhere, there's a booth cost and
right.
Here's how you pay it. So really teaching them practical skills too. We used to do percentages with them. But then that got really messy because we'd get done, at 10:30 at night, and then you're, calculating, okay, I made, $16 and get out a lot of them don't have phones, so my phone might be dead by then. So we just said, let's make it simple. They can do the booking online, that if they're doing it themselves and they're getting those computer skills, type in, the mom's credit card or whatever, pay the $10, then they get the confirmation email. So there's still all those skills, right, that go into that process. So it's up to 16 there. And then we're actually working with Ashley of Linen and Lace Clothing, or Linen and Lace Style, excuse me. So she was one that was doing clothing and jewelry. And she is a student at UNLV because she's going to school to be an art teacher.
Oh, cool.
So she has kind of brought this idea to our attention. Last week we had a meeting about it, but we're going to start incorporating UNLV art students into the, doing kind of a similar thing. So figuring out with them what's an accessible price point for them to pay for a booth, and how do we get them in there so that they're learning these practical skills of how to live off of their artwork. So we had this conversation because I went to school for art at UNLV as well, like 10 years ago. But, how does one know how to price their artwork? And so She had a good story. One of the girls she worked with priced something at like $10. And she was like, okay, but like when you factor in your time and the materials and your schooling, like how much should that really cost? So that's a conversation too that I want to start having, and maybe hosting workshops with some of our vendors, teaching other vendors or younger entrepreneurs or artists how to price your work, how to, apply for markets. Like what are some of these practical things that creatives can learn to make money from their craft? So
that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's so proactive.
Yeah.
I love it.
I mean, I know when I graduated from UNLV, I got my degree in film photography. So then I got out of school and I was like, okay, well, what now? Now I don't have access to a darkroom and I don't really know how to make money from this. So It was really challenging, and I, lived the broke artist life for a long time.
Artist.
Yeah. So I'm like, how do we really set people up in the community? Yeah. Giving them that sense of community, that foundation, and then also teaching them practical skills, whether they use it inside, for Market in the Alley or for other markets or, however, just they're learning business skills. So it's good.
Beautiful. Continuing off of the community aspect, do you ever have any vendors that do some kind of like activation or collect donations for like local nonprofits or
we do.
Like causes that are going on?
Yeah, so we try to have what's called impact stations every month. So impact stations, like for example, this last month we have a massage therapist that comes, and he is really on the science side of how the body works and what muscle groups, if you're having pain here, where is it coming from? So we actually have had him the last few months on Saturday nights come and just set up his table and just do free adjustments and massage therapy for people, and then they can leave a donation. So we try to do things like that. A couple months ago, we had one of our vendors, she was raising money for her best friend's son has Down syndrome, so she was raising funds for the Down Syndrome Foundation. So, we really want to also support all of these good efforts and nonprofits and things like that. So we try to bring in at least 2 every month to kind of give back programs, or if somebody is working with a nonprofit or donating a portion of their proceeds, make sure that we're marketing that online so people, our followers on Instagram can come seek out that person to support their efforts. We do have a no flyering policy at Market, which we don't want people just sitting and handing out flyers, so we try to do something interactive instead. So we, for a while, we're working with Sisters All in One, which is just kind of like this grassroots organization, and they would do friendship bracelets, and they would bring like a big ol' jug of lemonade and just offer people to come sit with them, drink lemonade, and make friendship bracelets, and they would talk about the work that they're doing with different refugees. And it's just really cool to see what creative concepts we can come up with to get the community not just going up and taking a piece of paper, but really sitting down with these people, learning how they started their organization.
It's a real experience.
Totally, yeah, and get them connected in a different way than they're used to. So that's kind of our whole goal, is to like put a creative spin on everything that happens in the alley, including impact and, interaction with nonprofits or people doing that work in our community.
I love it.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Thanks.
Are there any type of vendors that you usually like move away from, or don't, or no, otherwise allow?
Not really. So, I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my head other than anyone selling like marijuana or THC. Like it's a really muddy waters right now with the health district.
Oh, the permits, I can't even imagine what you
Yeah,
have to go through
and
for
even CBD, actually, we can't have people selling it if it's ingestible, and that's actually something that we're dealing with now. So like,
how do you?
I know. So
only topical.
Yeah, so topical. So we did have a vendor who was selling teas with CBD. So people weren't drinking it on site, but they could buy the tea, brew it at home, and drink it there.
So it's a little bit of like a loophole.
Sort of, but see, and then the health department came and told them they couldn't do it. So
really?
Yeah, so it's a weird,
man.
Yeah, and even if you go to like the city, I think it was the city or state website I was on the other day, and it said, something about CBD and dispensary, something. It was basically explaining that they don't have an answer yet. They're still doing research to figure out how all of that works in terms of, business models, in terms of what you can say on a label and can't say.
All the regulation that's involved.
Yeah, so that's something like we know 100%, like the health department, and just like we can't have any of that on site. But we do have, like I said, CBD vendors who might be selling topical, it's in creams or body lotions that they're making. Or we have Kana Modern Apothecary, they pop up with us and they sell CBD joints. So it's kind of like, I don't know, the health department comes and they see, I don't know. So I still am trying to figure out, what, I don't think anyone really knows how all of it works and what the health department is looking for when they come. And so yeah, that's really the one that I just usually tell people, like, hey, we can try it, but I don't want you to lose money and time either, and energy, if you're coming and popping up, and then you're going to get shut down immediately. So we usually just don't, unless it's a brand that we feel is like they have, their business license and they're straight with the city knows what they're doing, so that everyone's on the same page.
Well, once we legalize it nationally, maybe that'll be
clear
up some of the confusion and everything for you guys.
Oh, and I should say as well, and we put it in the brand guidelines, that also explicit content. So we are,
because you're family based.
yeah, we're a family friendly venue. So it says that in our brand guidelines of like, you know, we will automatically, it's a no-go if, you know, all of your artwork, you know, is super explicit language or depictions. Like it's just not. And plus, it's like, I don't think our crowd would be into that anyway. So also it's kind of on that side of like, I don't think it would be worth it. Yeah, it just doesn't align with our brand culture. So,
You're trying to identify your niche and...
Yeah, and we put in there too, which to me is really important, being a creative myself, and then also knowing that we are having a lot of people apply, as I put, you know, just to be straight up, if you're not a good fit for this market, like, please do not be discouraged. Like, your art is still cool and amazing. Right. Like, keep doing what you're doing. It might not be a fit for our market, but that doesn't mean it isn't wonderful, you know? So really, we want to be transparent about that as well. Just because something doesn't go with our brand doesn't mean we think less of it or anything. You know, we still want those people to succeed in our city. So
and there's so many opportunities out here, especially now. Like, we
have such a thriving creative culture right now. It's amazing. Yeah.
I don't know if I just wasn't like aware of it when I was younger, or if it actually wasn't there when I was younger. But I've, like, especially in this last year and getting involved in all these different community things and seeing how many different things and organizations and festivals and all the stuff that we have, and it's just so exciting.
It is really cool.
And I love it, especially because, like, you know, you always get those people who are just like, oh, you live in Vegas? Like, they automatically think of like the Strip and the casinos.
Yeah.
And they, you know, forget that there is a community here.
Totally.
And it's very vibrant and diverse, and there's so many things within it.
Yeah, I met a lady a couple months ago. She came to a creative meetup that Kelly and I held, and she told me that her and her husband had moved here from LA last year because they had read an article that was in a local LA paper all about how Las Vegas is like the future LA in terms of creativity. So they were like, you know, Vegas is more affordable to live than LA. It's, you know, has this bustling creative culture. Like, it is the place to be this year. So her and her husband moved. And I see her, you know, almost every market in the alley. So I just love to see that people really, from the outside, are seeing it for what it is too, and they're moving here because of that.
Right. So, no, that gave me goosebumps a little just thinking about that. It's so awesome.
It is really cool.
We have world-renowned like art out here. From what my one friend was telling me, like the murals downtown, the art sculptures and everything.
Yeah.
And when she had mentioned that, I had thought about it, and I was just like, yeah, when I've traveled outside of Vegas, like, I don't see as much of it. You know?
Yeah, and I think we have a cool opportunity. Like, even this last week, there was the Alley Mural Project. I don't know if you heard about that. It was down, it's kind of behind like Carson Kitchen and Beauty Bar, and like there's this little alley that runs along behind there.
Was that the thing that First Friday was doing? Were they having people come out and paint?
Yes. So a bunch of people all over downtown got involved to sponsor it, and they basically it was called Trash Alley. They turned Trash Alley into this art alley.
Yes.
Yeah. And my husband actually did some video work of the artist painting it, and it was so cool because now you walk through there and there's all these like interactive things. They have a neighborhood library. So like there's just books in this cool little book nook that you can go in and take a book, leave a book, which is something I personally love and want to put in every neighborhood. So it's just cool to see like all of these people from out of town here in Vegas. Rika, who runs the DTLV Art Walk, like she knows about all the artists, and you can go learn from her too, where these artists are coming from and the story and inspiration behind different murals. Like, it's really cool to see it all come together, and how there is and that's something I've just, like, it's one of my favorite things here, is there really is no competitiveness in people's minds right now. Like, in the creative industry, everyone wants the whole culture to be elevated so that it can be, like you're saying, like more people, you know, coming to Vegas to see that side of it. And so everyone is so like collaboratively minded, which is really fun.
It. That makes me so excited because I'm all about like building the community solidarity, which is why I started the magazine, is because I've always been involved in community, and I've always been a person that's like, come do this with me. Let's go do it together. It's more fun with more people. And then, form that into an idea where let's build up our community together and move forward with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do things so much faster when we do things together.
Yes. And then
so
we
that's
have all
why
these
I'm like,
different ideas and everything, and it's
really fun. It's awesome.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
So, moving a little bit away from, I mean, it's still art, but from like vendors into the performance aspect of the event, what kind of performances do you guys, come out? Is it just people doing like live music, or do you have people come out that do like stand-up or spoken word? What kind of?
So right now it's mostly live music. We actually work with a woman named Lily, and she does all of our bookings for us, and she works with a lot of musicians in all different types of genres, but for Market, we usually try like Sundays are more folky. We were working with one of our friends, Tree Hill, to program Saturday nights. And Tree definitely has a more kind of soulful, funky vibe. So we had that the last couple months on Saturdays, which was really fun. But Jen's whole vision when she started Fergusons was that we would really, really be hyper focusing on original music. And that's with traveling artists as well as local musicians. So kind of our guidelines when we're hiring musicians or working with musicians is that they play 80% original if they have that much, and then 20% covers. And so that's something that I think at Market we're probably more around the 50-50, but that's what we want to work toward, and that's what we really want to support musicians in, is creating their own music, because I think in Vegas a lot of musicians have to survive on covers, and we want Fergusons to really
inspire them to get out of that comfort zone and start
and highlight people for their original music. So every Saturday and Sunday, actually, on the stage at Fergusons, we have local musicians come and play. And Jen has this idea of having traveling musicians start coming and staying at Fergusons, because the back of it is this residential kind of rentable area that musicians could stay. But they would be able to stay on the residential side, play a night or two at Fergusons, and then travel on to the next place. So that's really her goal. And it's always been that way with music, is to really highlight people for their original music. And then we actually, for stand-up, we've done a couple different stand-up kind of things, but I don't know how they found us, but there was they're called No Fuss Comedy Bus, and they're based out of LA. And a couple months ago, they actually drove into Vegas for Market in the Alley. They have this massive old school bus that's painted all rainbow and crazy, and a stage that pops out of it. Whoa. And they came and did stand-up in the back alley during Market, and it was really fun. So that's really the only experience I've had with stand-up at Market, because we want to keep it more kind of just like it'll probably stay music, but yeah, that's stand-up. That's as far as we've gotten. And then Tree Hill, who also produces some other events in town, she just texted me yesterday actually asking about poetry readings and open mic, because that's a lot of what she does. And how we can kind of incorporate that into Market. So I'll be talking with her soon about what that looks like.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And is the application process for performers roughly the same?
So typically, when people ask me how they can perform at Market, I have them email me, and I forward them to Lily, because she has her own kind of screening process. And her own database of all the musicians that she works with. And I think it's usually sending a sample, and it might be some type of, kind of application or registration form to fill out. But yeah, that's all I know.
Do you ever have like guest speakers come out or special guests?
We haven't, but with the sustainability work that I want to do, I don't think Market is the right venue for that. But I think across the street at Fergusons, I'd love to start doing more panels The girls who program the events on that side of it have done different panel discussions with all of like the shop owners when we did the grand opening and how they got started. And we've hosted some creative morning events, and they always have a speaker. But for me, I actually just met with a girl from UNLV earlier this week about doing something with students again, kind of more in the sustainability realm, because they have their Student Sustainability Council, about coming and talking about work that they're doing in the city, and sharing different projects they're working on. I'm a big believer that when you are in a group of people and you just talk about what you're doing or wanting to do, other people find you and are like, oh my gosh, I could connect you with this person. And so really the resources can flow to you when you talk about it.
So it's a bit of like a community conversation.
Yeah, totally. And then I met with the air quality, it's like the Clark County Air Quality Control Center or something, or department, and they want to do something with us for Market. So I actually thought, once I sat down with them, having them come to Ferguson's and really teach people about air quality in Las Vegas area. They're merging with the Department of Sustainability, so how people can, make little tweaks to their daily habits to become a little more eco-friendly, or just even save money, right? Like, we don't think about the electricity that we're using in our houses or...
Right. Now, I remember seeing something a while back that was talking about like the difference of like the temperature of the street when you have a street that has trees planted, or even like if you have a building that has a rooftop garden or plants growing up the side, it greatly reduces the temperature, which also means you don't have to run the AC as much.
Totally.
And it's pulling things out of the air. So it's just
and which is
around.
Cool, because too, now that you mentioned that, Fremont Street right now, they're doing something called Project Enchilada, and they're putting trees lining all of downtown from Las Vegas Boulevard to Maryland Parkway.
Oh my God.
So if you've been to Market in the Alley recently and seen all the construction, it's like the last 3 months we've had construction out front. It's because they're widening the sidewalk so it's more walkable, and then they're putting in these massive planters and lining the whole Fremont with trees.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so it's really cool. And again, just me, aside from Market in the Alley, have been having a lot of conversations with people about different gardens that could be put downtown, composting facility. Yeah, just like trying to figure out how we can continue making, like I said, like that impact environmentally while we're also making like a local impact to our community members.
Yes.
So.
Have you heard of the 5R Revolution group?
No, are they local too?
Yes, so 5R Revolution is a subcommittee of the Sierra Club. Oh. And they focus on the 5 R's. Everyone knows the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle. Theirs is refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle, and rot, which is composting.
Oh, cool.
And I go to their meetings when they have them each month, and we were talking about the possibility of trying to figure out where we could start a community garden and also put a big focus on composting, because one of the girls on the team, that's like her bread and butter is composting. She does the worm composting. Oh, yeah. She knows everything about composting.
Is it Kelsey?
No, it is Tori. I would love to be a part of that in any way that's possible. I would love to connect you guys with 5R Revolution, because that's their whole thing, is to focus on reducing waste, educating people about the 5 R's and what each one like entails, and getting involved in the community in sustainability projects and everything.
That's amazing. So, we could use their help at Market.
Yes.
So it's another one I'll be emailing today.
Hey. That's why I love doing this, because I get to meet so many different amazing people and groups, and then I can be like, have you heard of this person?
Yeah, let me connect you. I'm the same way. I love it.
Love it. So I guess we kind of touched on the impact of the local community. Was there anything that you wanted to expand on that, or like have you noticed any major changes in the community as a result of the impact through the Market?
So all of our shops actually at Ferguson's have been opened by previous market vendors, which is really cool. Yeah. Except for one, they've just had a bustling online business forever, for like the last like 7 or 8 years, and they're a husband and wife team. But otherwise, everyone pretty much started doing pop-ups with us at market. So for me, that's been really cool to see local small business like thrive. So, and even our, market vendors, I've had market vendors who, like So Needy Bread Co. come, and it's their first market and they don't know what to expect. And they're like, oh, I hope I don't lose, the money that I spent on the booth fee. And to see them actually sell out, or like, I'd see them an hour in and they're having a blast, and it's like they're selling things and they're meeting people in the community. Like, it's all of these things that kind of show me like why it is so, so important to invest in small business. And even myself, having had my own shop, I mean, getting to meet people who want to hear your story and your why, and are stoked to come in and continue supporting you in your efforts to make an impact in your community. And they're also, putting money back into our own local economy instead of into Target, where it's like, okay, where's that money going?
Right.
So
stocks, it all gets reinvested. What is the percentage? It's like 60 something, right? When you spend,
it's like 60. I think it's 68% stays in your local economy when you. Don't quote me on that number. It is in the 60s.
Yeah.
I think it's 68. Stays in your local economy when you spend it with a small business, versus I think it's 13% when you spend it with a corporation. Mm-hmm. And nothing against corporations. Before we started recording, you and I had talked about kind of, some things you're just not able to buy locally or ethically, and you have to, I had this blog post a couple years ago because it was easy enough when I was a single person to buy for myself ethically and locally. And then once I had a child and got married, like, I remember distinctly this experience of trying to find, a secondhand ironing board, and then not being able to find one, and then trying to find one made in the US, and then not being able to find, and then finally just breaking down and going to Target and buying one made in China. And I wrote this long thing about, it's this balance of, so I think that's something to take into consideration. But it's been cool for me to see like how many things we can buy locally, how many times, when you're sitting there thinking, okay, well, where am I going to eat tonight if we go out to eat? Well, there's all of these amazing local restaurants that we can go eat at, So really seeing that be incorporated into everyone's lifestyles kind of on a bigger level has been cool, because the more opportunity we have to support small business, I think just our citywide, the more we do. And I think a lot of people are doing it without even realizing, what the impact is of that. When you're supporting, like, I remember I actually met this woman recently, and she met my daughter, and we had actually hung out a couple times. And then I mentioned, I used to have this store on Fremont Street, and then when I had Avila, I closed the store. She's like, oh my God, was it here? And I was like, yeah. She's like, I remember you were carrying her as a newborn. I came in and shopped from you, and I remember thinking like, oh, I'm supporting this woman and her family, and I'm like, oh my God. So it's just kind of cool. I don't think we all think of that when we shop local, that you are directly impacting the livelihood and the well-being of the person you're shopping from.
Yeah, you're helping them pay their groceries, their rent, their kids' college funds. Like, there's so much of an impact when you do that.
And allowing them to live creatively. Like, that's the thing for me. Like, going to school, graduating, not knowing what to do with my degree was really disheartening for me. And I was like, and that's kind of, I feel like one of my main missions now is like to help people live their creative life and make that a job where they're not a starving artist. They can be thriving and paying their bills and, living well, doing what they love doing, right?
Being happy with what they're doing.
Yeah, that's like the dream, so.
And like one thing that I touched on with Alex yesterday, with the minimal market was, the idea of recognizing that, if you're looking for something, especially like if you're looking for it locally and you're just like, well, this isn't existing right now. that is an opportunity that, you know, someone can take. You're like, oh, well, I can provide something for a market that's lacking this.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
then boom, you're an entrepreneur.
Yeah, totally, which is kind of fun because Minimal Markets, I think their first pop-up was in my old store. And it was really fun because I had been really into the fair trade stuff. So seeing that they were really into the eco stuff and how all of that aligned. And then they're telling me about this refill shop, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've never thought about, you know, the impact of my shampoo bottles.
Right.
You know, so yeah, having them enlighten me personally, and then seeing how that journey has gone for me since. Now it's like, I think 4 years later, and seeing, you know, where they're at is just really cool, and how many people they're impacting in the city. Because yeah, they saw a need, and then they were like, okay, let's fulfill this need.
Yes.
So
and we all get to learn from each other on that.
yeah.
Like she was talking about how like people like you said, like you never thought about, you know, a refill station, and she gets people who come over and she explains, you know, the purpose and reasoning behind it, and they're just like, I didn't even realize how much, you know, waste we were producing.
Yeah.
It's not something that we just, you know, think of our stuff going as away.
Yes.
Whereas away.
Yeah, so
You know?
today actually, when I went to drop my daughter off with my mom, while I was going to work, my mom brought me the March issue of National Geographic, and it's all about waste and circular economies versus a linear economy. And she's like, all this stuff that you're always talking about, like National Geographic's, you know, and I'm like, yeah, because I think the world is waking up to like, yeah, and that's for me as an event coordinator. Like, I want to coordinate a badass event, but that also isn't producing 20 pounds of trash, you know,
Right.
every month. Like, how do we enable people to have a great time, really connect authentically with people in the community, and not create more garbage?
Right, and you're building that awareness to things like you were saying about when people come over and you're telling them the reason behind the stainless steel cup, and they're just like, oh. It's like a little light bulb goes off in their head, you know?
Yeah, planting that seed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I wanted to touch a little bit on Small Business Saturday.
Yes, my favorite holiday, other than Christmas and Halloween and Easter. One of my top 5.
Were you guys open on Small Business Saturday?
So what was fun was actually I planned a one-off market on Small Business Saturday because we hadn't had our grand opening yet. And we had an amazing turnout. I can't remember off the top of my head. I think we had maybe 15 vendors on the yard side, so it actually wasn't in the alley. It was on the yard side of Ferguson's, and we had people all over the grass and in the walkways. And it was just a really fun opportunity for me personally, selfishly, to talk about why small business is so important in shopping local, and then 2, to kind of showcase all the work that's gone into Ferguson's and making it a place where local businesses thrive. And again, why are we doing that? Why do we care?
Right.
So yeah, we had just people come out from all over the city, and it was really cool because a lot of those people are like, oh, well, I live in Summerlin, and I looked up on the Shop Small website who was, you know, and a couple weeks before I was on, because it's an American Express actually, like, founded holiday.
Really?
Yeah, so American Express started Small Business Saturday, as far as I know. And they're the ones who you can get your marketing materials and everything from. But basically, they have created this map, which I think is super cool. You can go to their website, and then people who use American Express, I don't know if they get emails about it or what, but you can register your business as a local small business. You know, they approve it. So we had Ferguson's approved and put on their website as a place if someone is in Vegas traveling, or they live here and they're just looking for small businesses support, we come up on that map, and then they can go to Ferguson's and find that there's actually, you know, 9 currently, well, 12 if you count the restaurants, but 12 different businesses that you can come support that are all owned by local people.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so Small Business Saturday was really like a good jump start to like our grand opening and the new year. So yeah, and it always happens in November, the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So
Like Black Friday.
Yes, and I call it my anti-Black Friday.
Right. It's a counter to that holiday.
It is. It totally is. And it's encouraging to see how many people wait for Small Business Saturday because they would rather go support their local people than stand in line at a big box store,
That's
for 19 hours. So
I'm not buying anything today. I don't want to contribute to this.
Yeah.
It's
crazy.
crazy.
I always have the same motto and I think Small Business Saturday, like in the calendar year, falls perfectly, because I know for myself, like I'll wait till Small Business Saturday or like Cyber Monday to buy things that I've been wanting to buy for months, or do all of my holiday shopping that weekend, because I'm like, I don't want to contribute to just buying things that don't mean much, or I don't know how or where they were made. I want to be able to tell. A good example is I bought a sweater for my sister who's having a baby this summer, and I was like, oh, the woman who made it, she's a mom too, and so getting to tell the story, to me, that's so important, to know where things are coming from and how they're made. And so it was cool because I got to connect. I gave her the woman's card, and my sister now has gotten really into supporting local artists and people and having commission things made, because I'm buying her these things and I'm like, oh, and this is about this person, and so it's kind of fun to see that trickle too.
Right, and you have such an awareness for, again, like we were saying, like where it comes from, who made it, the story behind it, and everything. Because especially, like, unfortunately, when you're getting stuff from those big box stores like Walmart, like everyone just accepts the fact that it's being made in these other countries where they're not paying people for their work, and they're in horrible working conditions. And like, I would like to see the transition of people who are just like, I would rather spend a little bit extra money to get something that's been made locally, been ethically sourced, handmade, whatever it falls under, but have a better understanding of what you're getting, how it's being made, where those materials are coming from, instead of just going and, oh, that looks cute, buy.
Yeah. And that's kind of like my personal ethos too, is kind of like getting, because I used to be that shopper, like
we all have. That's how
mindless
we were raised.
Consumption, right? Like, oh, it's cute, so I'll buy it, and then I can donate it when I'm done with it. And then someone, this mindset, someone will love it.
Right, but then you find out about how much is thrown out from thrift stores. And if you've watched, I think John Oliver did a piece, and then also Hassan Minaj on the Patriot Act. They both did pieces on the fast fashion industry and how horribly environmentally unfriendly it is, and how they burn the clothes, or just the process of making them, where they make it, they dump the chemicals into the local water. They literally don't care that they're poisoning people in and around just to make a profit. And we've been very conditioned over the last several decades to not question these things.
Totally. Well, and that's why too, even at Market, like I'm saying with these sustainability initiatives, for clothing, like when I'm approving clothing vendors, I'm asking them like, well, where are you sourcing? Not that, because I know my personal blog and my personal life is all ethical production, so I don't want that to kind of get in the way of someone being able to vend and market, but I also want to use that as an educational point of like, okay, well, like, how can we, make sure that this is being sourced responsibly? And that is something that I look at for the approval process, is the quality of products. Because also, I don't want an attendee coming to Market and buying a $7 shirt, not that they would, because anything handmade, even if it's made with, bad fabric, is not going to cost $7, but just to kind of paint the picture, I don't want them buying cheap things that are going to fall apart after they use or wear it once. Like, we really want quality items in the alley, and want to help makers and creatives get to that point too, where they understand why quality is so important. Because we're not just trying to sell I don't want someone to just try and sell something to make a quick profit.
Right.
Like, there has to be that intentionality behind the brand, and behind the materials used and the process, and even from the design process, like, we want that to all be considered.
And it gives you such a better appreciation for it, because like, we, especially like with the fast fashion industry, it's just like, oh, I wore this like 2 times for a week or a couple months, and next thing. But if it's something that has more meaning and more value to it because it was made you know somebody who made that,
Yeah.
you know, and you're going to hold on to that.
Oh, absolutely. And like Ashley, who I mentioned earlier, like her whole thing is slow fashion and like actually making custom pieces. And we have a few vendors like that who either they only do custom pieces for people, which to me I'm all about, because I'm like, yeah, a custom piece is made just for you and your body, and it's such a high quality, you know, and that's been a big shift for me is I'm really only buying things that I'm like, especially clothes, can I wear, like, do I see myself wearing this for the next 10 years? And if not, is it a high enough quality that I can resell it and buy another high quality item or something? Like, I don't want that disposable fashion. And actually, side note, totally unrelated to this conversation, or to Market, but Forever 21 just filed for bankruptcy. So I think that's a perfect example of like a super corrupt business that is now like, the consumer shift is happening. Like millennials and younger want to know where stuff is coming from and how it's being made. Are people being exploited? What is the impact? Like you're talking about the water.
Questions.
Yeah, which is totally like, and I've studied a lot into this, but you know, 30 years ago, it was intentionally, everything was pushed overseas so that we couldn't see what was going on and people wouldn't think twice about buying.
And a lot of people don't think about that. Like we all just immediately jump into they wanted to save money by outsourcing jobs to places where they could get away with paying for cheap labor, but I didn't even consider that it's not in front of you sort of thing.
Oh, absolutely.
So kind of like to the counter of like the away concept with our trash, the coming in concept, you know, like we're just like, oh, look, this thing exists and it's here constantly.
Yeah.
It's just constantly cycled out, like new shirts, new, you know, clothing lines every single week.
Yeah.
And it's just like hearing that some of these places, they will literally throw away their clothes so that like it's cheaper for them apparently to throw it away than it is to give it to somebody who needs it or to donate it.
Yeah, because they have to ship it. Yeah.
And it's the whole thing is just exhausting, you know, to I think, you know, society and like the human spirit in all these different aspects.
Totally, yeah. So, I agree.
And that's why, like, I've been trying to, like, if I, you know, need new clothes or something, I'm going to try and find it at a thrift store if I can first. So, because that's what a lot of people, like, everyone donates to the thrift stores, but what they don't understand is that not enough people buy from the thrift stores.
Totally, yeah.
So that's another aspect that people can help the community, because a lot of the thrift stores, they actually have programs that give back to the community.
Yeah.
So it's all a cyclical thing.
Yeah, and for local people, because I assume most listeners are local, Savers is a great place. So I have a couple recommendations, but Savers, they partner with Safe Nest, and then they also have a program for textile recycling. And I don't know of anyone else who's doing that in Las Vegas.
That they actually do the textile recycling?
Yeah, so I was going to say, I know it's not in Vegas. I know they outsource it somewhere to do that. As far as I know, there's only 4 machines in the world that can actually break down clothing fabric and spin it into new. But it sounds like, are working with one of those. But as to what you're saying, like shopping secondhand and all of that, that's too why for Market we want to like have those vintage vendors and even like secondhand, and it may not be full vintage, but it has that consistency of a collection and a boutique feel. Because we want to I want to make shopping secondhand fun and cool, and all of these vendors who are doing that, like a lot of them know all this terrible stuff about the fashion industry and want to make it easy for people. Because I know plenty of people who are so discouraged to even go into a Savers because they don't want to hunt. And after I had a baby, I was like, I get it. I don't want to go into Savers and hunt for 3 hours unless I'm by myself. Then that's fun. But with a kid who I have her with me most of the time, it's just not doable. So being able to have these, you know, people in town who are doing it. And like Neon Cactus Vintage, who's open at Fergusons, she has all these really fun, colorful, funky patterns. And, you know, again, it's that, okay, I'd rather go support this local person. She's done the hunting, right, at Savers or these other places and found these really cool things. And then I'm supporting her by shopping there. And we have a good probably 7 or 8 vintage vendors that come and pop up. And actually in March, I don't know when this podcast will air, but in March we have Zoltar's daughter that will be at Market, and she has a lot of really cool, funky fashion too, all vintage, and it's really fun.
Yeah.
So
I'm so glad that's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Because you find out that a lot of places actually end up greenwashing you on the whole
totally, yeah.
issue with textile recycling, which is why I was just like, is it
is it real?
Yes, because I was bringing textiles old clothes to recycle to H&M because they have a textile recycling program.
Quote,
and
unquote.
then I watched, can't remember, I think it was Hassan Piker. Not Piker, no, that's TYT. The guy from Patriot Act, when he did his episode on fast fashion and was talking about, H&M, oh, but wait, actually, they don't recycle it. They don't. They'll give you a discount, like, oh, come in, bring your textiles, we'll recycle it, buy more clothes.
Yeah.
But then they found that they were literally either throwing it out or they were shipping it to another country where they are burning it because they don't have fuel.
Which to them is recycling, because who says what the definition of recycling is?
Exactly. Yeah. So
it's discouraging. So I've actually been trying to get in touch with Saver's corporate office to make sure, because I have two. My husband and I did a closet clean out, and I have a bunch of stuff for a clothing swap, which is another event that I want to start producing in the alley. It's like quarterly clothing swaps and book swaps and other ways of swapping, because I think too that's part of the culture that I think we stand for as a brand, and then myself, like, I'm totally behind it. But yeah, and even things from our homes, So we've actually, side note, Kelly and I hosted a clothing swap at a market, and it didn't go over well because when you have vintage or secondhand vendors, it competes with business for them, which makes sense. And in retrospect, we were like, yeah, we'll never do that again. But with Earth Day coming up, that's something that I've been talking to Minimal Market about, because I've done them with them in the past. But really, I'm like, we have so many people in Las Vegas who are hungry for living better, like figuring out how to lessen their impact, how to support local, like all of these things are so connected. So clothing swaps, is one way. But back to what I was saying, we did our closet clean out, and I have, a giant pile of like band t-shirts, and my husband's a tattooer, so he gets lots of other tattoo shop shirts, and it's a whole thing. But I'm like, I'm not taking these to the thrift store because I'm like, they're just going to get thrown out or sent to, Ghana, where they don't need them there.
Are there any local like homeless location or homeless shelters that you bring it to?
So it's funny because I have worked with like Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth and Safe Nest and a couple others, but I try to call them before dumping stuff on them, because I've learned with my old shop, because I would do like a book drive or a coat drive, and then I would get to some of these places, and like you're saying with the thrift stores, they're inundated with donations all the time. And so I don't want to contribute to giving them too much of what they already have. Like a good example is I did a coat drive for Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth, and I'm like, this is, it was part of my old brand, Sister House Collective, and I was like, our whole goal was to sell fair trade items and also make that local community impact. So we did this coat drive, and I get to Nevada Partnership, and I'm like, I collected, like 50 coats. And they're like, okay, well, and I walk in, first of all, and in the lobby there's coats everywhere, because everybody's cleaned out their closet. Everyone's looking for a nonprofit to donate to. So they had this, pile that's just spilling over. They're like, okay, well, we've had a lot of donations already, but thank you anyway. And, you can drop them here and we might be able to use them. And I remember just thinking like, okay, like I'm never going to do a drive again unless I call first to make sure that these items are needed. And so since that happened, that was probably 5 years ago now, I try to identify what the needs are first before I go take stuff somewhere. And even recently, there was the fire downtown at the Alpine Motel. Oh, yeah. And I was like, they probably need hygiene products. So I got into my mode of like, okay, let's, collect some hygiene products. And I'm texting Kelly at Fergusons, and we're already planning the post that's going to go on our Instagram about, we'll be a drop-off station for hygiene products. And then I finally figure out who to call, because that took a while to track down who I was supposed to talk to, but the Red Cross. And I'm like, we're going to get hygiene products. And she's like, oh, well, actually, we have plenty of hygiene products. She's like, what we need is, Christmas is around the corner. The kids lost everything. They don't have clothes. They don't have toys. Like, if you could get those items, like that would be the most helpful right now. So by asking, that nonprofit, okay, well, what are the needs? Then we were able to, I was like, okay, call it off, cancel the post, stop making it. So, and what ended up happening there was we did, just on my personal Instagram, did a fundraiser. And we ended up raising $2,000. It was around it was $1,800. We raised like $7 something from online in 2 hours. And then Tony Shea, because I was living at Ferguson's at the time, so he said, I'll match whatever you raise. So he matched that. So we were able to go. My husband and I went to Target. And this too kind of goes into our conversation earlier, because I want to also be cognizant that not every person can shop things that are made better, right? So we're like, Target is what's accessible for these people right now, and this is gonna bring joy to people in our local community, right? So
still doing some good.
Yeah, we're supporting a corporation, but like in the grand scheme of things, like the impact that it's making is greater than that. So we ended up being able to go to Target, and we got almost $200 on every single gift card, and all of the kids that were affected by the fire got a $200 gift card for Christmas to go to Target and get whatever they wanted. So it was really cool. But again, seeing how the community can come together and like support, it's all part of this journey of like supporting local, shopping local. When something happens downtown, and that's a question we get a lot at Ferguson's, is like with the gentrification of downtown, like being honest and transparent about that. Like, what are you doing for the community of people who've been there for generations?
You can't just push them out
Right.
and be like, well, sucks to suck,
Yeah.
You're standing in the way of innovation and development and growth.
So we really, for me, that was really important that we did do something. And I felt guilty that we couldn't do more, but I'm like, the reality of it is like, we're downtown, these are our neighbors, like we may not ever interact with this person other than walking past them on the street, but like they're people in our community. Like, how do we support them? And I don't know. And so I'm like, the least we could do is give the kids gift cards, and then they can get shoes if they need it, or pants, or a toy, or so. And the important thing to me too about that was making sure like the kid gets the gift card and like they get to spend that money. And there was only so much I could do, but I talked a lot with the woman from Red Cross, and what she, relayed to me was that like the kids were gonna they had a ride to Target, and everything was set up for them to really enjoy that gift card. So that was cool.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you for doing that. You've made such a massive impact through that.
Yeah, thank you. I can't take credit. It was mostly people from Instagram. Thank you, people from Instagram.
You facilitating it, and then everyone who came together to help you address that need in the community.
Totally. And I think too, like we talked about future makers earlier and the kid entrepreneurs. Like, what's cool about that, me being a mom, is seeing how, like, explaining to my daughter what we're doing in that moment. She's like, what are we doing, here? And can I look at the toy section? I'm like, no, we're here to get gift cards, and, we're going to help these kids because there was a fire at their house. And she's 2.5, so she probably doesn't understand fully what was going on, but seeing her get excited about being able to help someone in the community, I'm like, and seeing our kid entrepreneurs and just how they interact with other kids, and sometimes they raise money for different things, so it's really cute to see how like the human spirit really is about community, and it's about loving your neighbor and supporting people around you. And you can see that even from kids in our community. So teaching them those business skills along with human skills, right? Like just human nature, and how they can, like, business doesn't have to be a bad thing. And that's something Kelly Bennett and I have always really agreed on, and why I think we get along so well and we have this similar vision for business. Like, business can exist for good.
Yes.
And it can exist to impact communities it doesn't always have to be this greedy, ugly thing.
That's entirely like my concept with business and why I love business and why I went for a business degree, because like I, see and acknowledge that social contract that business has with the community, whatever the community is, whether it's this local community, state, country, world, whatever the definition of community is, it's not, just some, strictly defined thing by a parameter. It's the people that you employ, the opportunities you provide, or whatever you're doing, whatever you are giving to the community, offering it, all of that's involved, and it's beautiful. It's like watching like a garden grow.
Yeah, and that trickle effect too, of just like when some people start doing it, and then it trickles to their family members or their friends, and now with technology, it's like that is like there's no limit, right? So it's cool. Yeah, it's a cool time to be alive.
It really is. That's like one of the things I'm always saying.
Yeah.
What kind of expansion is in the works for the market, if any?
So I can't say a ton until we kind of lock in some details, but I'm working with some other markets on the West Coast and trying to bring them to Vegas, or do different collaborations where either we're bringing some of our makers to them in their cities, or they're bringing people to us here. I think in Vegas we have a cool opportunity because the trade shows happen here. So kind of could we align a massive market during one of the trade shows? That was one of Jen's ideas that I think is really cool, and something I probably never would have thought of. But just bringing, you've already got people from all over the world in town for a trade show. Now you host a market with local makers and makers from the West Coast, and then kind of bridging that gap, bringing people to kind of, it's almost like an underground like experience of finding independent makers and designers and creators, and just.
And they take that back home with them. So one person goes back home and it's like, let's do something like this.
Oh, totally.
And
giving exposure. Like I know when I'm in other cities, I go and seek out like independently owned, cute, curated shops, and I'm like, find the coolest artists, and that artist might be in New York, but now I'm communicating with them through Instagram, or I'm buying their stuff and supporting them. So it is cool. And that idea of like, what is local? Like local could be our immediate local vicinity, or local West Coast local, or local across the country local. Like what defines that?
I went to California recently, and I was just like, I want coffee, but I was like, I don't want to go to Starbucks. So I literally like sat there, looked up on my phone. I was just like, local coffee shop, and it was a couple miles away, but I was just like, I'm going to drive there. And I went, and it was fantastic. It's such better quality. It tastes, not to say that Starbucks doesn't taste real, but
they've said publicly that they burn it.
Maybe, it all kind of like tastes the same.
Yeah, which they've outright said that they burn their beans a little crispy so they taste the same everywhere, and that's just a big business tactic. But see, and then on the flip side of that, I have friends who are from Seattle that will go to Starbucks because they're like, well, this is my local spot and I know how it's going to taste. So it's like, that experience is different for everyone. But I'm with you. When I travel, I try to find the local spots, and I usually try to do a blog post after to share with people like what are the cool local shops and places that I ate and stuff, because I'm just nerdy about that. But awesome. You find the best stuff when you're really seeking out local. And like Tahoe, if we're speaking Nevada, is a good spot to like, there's so many good local coffee shops and little shops and secondhand stores, and it's kind of this hippy dippy place, but I love it. I'm just like, it's so fun. Yeah, good coffee up there too, so.
Nice. There's just so much out there.
Yeah.
It's so great.
Yeah.
Are there any other organizations that you work with to either achieve the goals for Market in the Alley or to address a concern in the community, anything like that?
Yeah, so Hydrant Club is the one right now that we are partnering with this year. so far. And like I said, she's doing the dog lounge to kind of educate dog owners in the community on different etiquettes and just, any questions that they have about owning a dog, taking care of a dog, all of that kind of stuff. And then she is partnering with Primal Pets and one other brand that we're waiting on confirmation from them, but to kind of sponsor this space under this beautiful tree at Market during our Sunday markets this year, to provide that to the community. And then last year we partnered with Zappos. They sponsored us to sponsor twice a month 2 different vendors, their booth cost for them to vend at Market. And something that's really important to us is making sure that we are working with people if they are not able to financially afford the booth fee, helping them get there. So what we've kind of been doing and what we pitched to them again, and it looks like they're gonna do it again this year, is sponsoring those 2 booths every month. And so they also have a really cool trailer that they were bringing to Market, which I think just had some technical issues. So hopefully that'll be coming back too. But I know Zappos as a brand works with a lot of different local small businesses to help them with business strategies and merchandising and things like that. So they were bringing this trailer and having brands pop up inside the trailer, and it kind of like the front of it opens up like a store. So that was really cool to see. So Zappos is the other one that will probably be giving us a sponsorship. And I'm working on West Elm next. So West Elm does have initiatives for, supporting local artists and creatives. They do pop-up shops in their store. I've worked a lot just personally with them in the past with other local artists in my own old shop. And then they also have a fair trade line. So to me, that's why I'm like, West Elm would be a great partner.
Aligns with all of your values.
Yeah, they align with a lot of our values. They're really cool. I've seen them. I mean, their furniture is beautiful. Their designs and stuff are beautiful. So to me, really having elevated lounges in the space would be cool. So that's kind of what I'm talking to them about now, but nothing confirmed. Inside info.
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So to start moving into the conclusion, what have you personally learned or gained through your experience with the Market?
I think I personally have learned that managing a market at this volume, like this size, is really a lot. When I first took the position, I was freelance. So I was like, oh, sweet. Like I get to work with local creatives, which is like what I did in my last store, and then like it's on a bigger scale. And Kelly and I have our other business called The Workshop downtown, where we coach local creatives and do free meetups and different classes and things. So we were like, this just aligns perfectly with everything we're doing. And I literally envisioned myself just like, working from a coffee shop and like, I don't know what I thought, but I was thinking it was a lot more hands-on, which it is a lot hands-on, but it's a lot of like back-end admin work. Mm-hmm. So actually, I just did a podcast on our new Fergusons podcast called Rooted In, and they were asking me, like, what does your day-to-day look like? And I'm like, honestly, I'm wearing my glasses and I'm on my computer and I'm like emailing people and I'm putting kind of data into our spreadsheet system of who's signing up for Market, and I'm texting people like, hey, are you coming this weekend? Like we talked about earlier, the Market's filling up. I have one more spot for this. So it's a lot of just like the back end. So I never realized, like now I have a whole new appreciation for anyone who's producing an event, because I'm like, it is a huge production.
Especially if you're doing it monthly.
Yeah, and so that's the thing too, like I really want to add farmers markets in, but I just had that conversation with Jen recently of like, we might have to hire someone else, because I actually only work part-time. I work Monday through Thursday, because to me, like being home with my daughter, I want to be a stay-at-home mom, but I also love the work that I do. So I was like, the happy medium, is 4 days on, 3 days off. So I pretty much do that unless it's market week, then I'm like on, but so yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but so yeah, it's been a lot. It's been interesting of like just how much. Oh yeah, and that's where I was going with it. With if we add a farmers market in, or even a second market, I'm gonna need some help. So, but yeah, for now it's great. And our team, we're a team of actually 8 girls. So we call ourselves the Fierce Kitties. And so our Fierce Kitty crew, yeah, it's kind of fun to even just be working alongside this like really badass group of ladies, because everyone has like their thing that they're good at, and Jen has really allowed us to bring our own ideas into what we're doing. So that's where kind of like, for me, all the sustainability stuff, I was like, Jen, like sustainability is like my life. And, you know, that's what I do on the side of Market. So I want to bring in these initiatives into Market because I want us to be the first zero waste like event in Vegas. And she's just like, all right, girl, go for it. So that's kind of what I'm really working on, and what I'm learning too is like actually having an existing business and then trying to backtrack and make it eco-friendly or make it more sustainable is actually quite difficult.
It's a progression.
Totally. And because for a long time, and this is somewhat different, but I've myself been like, okay, well, a brand like Nike, like why can't they become more sustainable? They've got billions of dollars and, you know, all this manpower. They exploit people in their production line, right? And then I go to these seminars when the trade shows are here about sustainability and fashion and all this stuff, and why brands who exist aren't already doing everything right, you know? And then now actually being in that position, and it's different because we are a small team, but I'm like, it is really hard when you have something that's established to then kind of change not the direction, but your protocol. Yeah, and like the way that you do things. And not that, I mean, Market actually really, even as it exists, does not produce that much waste. It's not going to be that crazy to become a zero waste event, but like, you know, finding the right person who can be there to be standing at the compost, you know, bin and help educate people, like that takes either money, energy, and or time, you know. So really identifying that has been interesting to me to learn is like, oh, like when you have something that's established, it is kind of difficult to change the systems that are already in place, right? So that's been the biggest, I think, learning thing for me. And then also realizing that not everyone's on the same page as I am. Not everyone is as passionate about sustainability or eco-packaging. So really kind of taking my personal things that I invest time in studying, and then really just trying to meet people where they're at, and then kind of just gently say or help them kind of see the impact that could be made if they just make this one small tweak. But then again, too, they have their system, so that's kind of where it gets complicated, but it's really been a good learning experience for me and humbling, so it's good. Yeah,
definitely. It's a lot of, you know, reminding people that, like, the whole mentality, like, oh, I'm just one person. What can I do?
Right.
And it's just like, well, even if you made, like we were talking about this yesterday, like even if you make like 1-2 switches, like let's say you stop using water bottles, that alone, you as a singular person, like you're saving how many hundreds of water bottles, you know, from being, you know, thrown out into wherever it ends up. Even if it ends up in a landfill, it's still there. Yeah. You know, like we're at what, I think 1 million bottles per second or per minute that's produced.
It's so crazy.
And it's this mountain of plastic.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But everyone can make a difference. See, no matter how small a thing that they do or a change that they make, it has massive impacts.
Totally. Yeah. I agree.
So where can people support Market in the Alley, or, you know, get more any information that we haven't, you know, covered, anything like that?
So Market in the Alley on Instagram is really where we're super active, but then too on Ferguson's Downtown website. Like I mentioned earlier, if you go to fergusonsdowntown.com, then click on events, click on Market in the Alley, it has all of our dates for the rest of the year, and then that link for if you're interested in applying as a vendor. Definitely read through the brand guidelines, and then you can apply there, and there's no cost to apply currently. So
cool.
Yeah.
Is there any place where people can like donate to you guys to help fund what you guys are doing?
That's really sweet, but no. So what we do, usually is we just, if somebody wants to volunteer their time with us, we do partner with Caridad, who is, they work with the homeless and a lot of homeless veterans, and they actually have a freight farm in the alley. between the alley and bunkhouse. And it's this indoor farm, basically, that's in an old container. It's actually really cool. It's gotten some national press because it just like started a couple months ago. But yeah, this woman, Meredith, she works with local homeless, mostly veterans, and they are providing jobs through the freight farm. So when we were doing our event called Pour in the Alley, that's kind of on hold right now, we were donating proceeds, I think it was like 10% proceeds back to them. And then we also have them up front checking people in. And so I wasn't on that event, so I don't know like the full details, but what we would do is we would be able to have volunteers on that event. And because Market in the Alley and Ferguson's is not a nonprofit, we can't really accept donations, but I always tell people if they want to come volunteer or shadow, or we can plug in, we can do more impact when we have that, man or woman power. So if we have a nonprofit that just needs extra hands, then we have this kind of list of people who want to volunteer that we can say, hey, this impact station is going to be at Market this month, and we would love to just have you help them out. So we can kind of connect them with the organizations that we're working with. So yeah, if somebody wants to volunteer, my email is Ashley, ASHLEY @fergusonsdowntown.com, and then I can just kind of go from there with them. So
cool.
Yeah.
And you can send me any links that you want me to put in the description that's like an
perfect.
affiliate of yours. That way we can
Cool.
get some direction towards them.
Awesome.
Any last comments that you'd like to share?
No, this was really fun. Thank you.
No, thank you for sitting down with me and sharing everything. And
yeah, thank you. And hopefully we see just more community support and sustainability stuff. It's like fingers crossed all the things happen this year. So
we're on that path right now. I see it like, especially from just a year ago, you know, and it may have been that I wasn't like paying attention. Maybe it was already there, but like I've definitely seen a shift.
Oh, totally. I think it just keeps getting better and better with time. And it's easier for people to find. Yeah. And there's all these little pockets now of people and groups you can get plugged into that are just doing cool things. So it's fun.
I feel like a lot of the time people have the issue of getting started. They're just like, I want to do this, or I want to help that, or I care about this, but where do I go from here? And it's like the whole, like the concept of having too many choices thing, that they're just like, I don't even want to, go down the rabbit hole, but giving them, I guess like a jumping off platform. It helps.
And one of our mottos for the workshop downtown is just show up. So our thing is, Kelly and I host a free local creatives meetup every first Monday of the month. So if anybody wants to go to that, it's open to everyone, and it's free, and we buy coffee for everybody. So yeah, we always encourage people to just show up, and even if you don't know what the hell you're doing, or you have an idea but you're not sure how to get started, or you just want to meet other people, there really is no objective other than to just show up and be present in the community. So I encourage anyone to go to that.
Is there a link?
If you just follow the workshop downtown on Instagram, and then you can click on the link in that bio and sign up for the emails, and we send out emails like once a week, just letting people know about upcoming events or classes that we're doing. But then that free meetup is something we started last year, and it's just been so cool to see. We have a lot of our market vendors there, a lot of people who have wanted to vend at Market but aren't sure, so we just tell them like, come meet other people, and like that's the best way to get connected. So we love sitting down and talking to people in real life. So that's kind of our motto.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Come check that out.
Yeah.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Well, thank you again for sitting down with me.
Thank you.
Yes. And thank you guys for listening. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey everyone, this is Catherine from Millennials in Motion magazine. Thank you so much for listening to our Conversations with the Community episode with Ashley from Ferguson's and the Market in the Alley event. We hope you enjoyed our discussion and learned a lot about Ferguson's, all of the amazing things to check out at Market in the Alley, supporting local small businesses, and anything else we talked about. Given the current situation with COVID-19, Market in the Alley has gone digital. Check them out April 18th and 19th online for their virtual market. If you would like to check out or support Ferguson's and Market in the Alley, all related links are available in the description below. If you enjoyed this episode, please give us a like and subscribe for new content. Want to support what we do? Check out our Patreon community to see the benefits that we offer our patrons. Join our $1 tier and get mentioned in our monthly thank you video. Thank you all again for joining us for this episode. We hope you are all safe and healthy during this time. Until next time, I'm Catherine from Millennials in Motion magazine, and please remember, now more than ever, to be kind and be the change.